You're worthless. Pathetic. A monster. You're nothing. Just a disgusting whelp. Nothing more than a weed. You're ugly. The darkness folded in on me, pressing against my claws as I lay paralyzed on the ground, stunned by my swirling thoughts. A mildewy smell filled the stone room, one that could only come from old rain. A small window sat on the wall, shutters drawn, only letting through small slivers of light that barely pierced the cloud of darkness around me. My eyes shot over to the window at the sound of a bird rustling its wings outside. I clenched my claws instinctively as I looked between the closed shutters at the world, which was cascaded in a nightly fog. My eyes started back to my claws, all scratched up and scarred. I relaxed them slightly, trying to contain my emotions. It didn't work. I shivered and slowly stood up on all fours before walking over to the side room laden with broken glass and burnt-out candles. I struck my claw against the stone floor, igniting a spark for a fresh candle. It glowed dimly, casting my shadow long across the wall. It was a small light, but enough for me to see. I stared into the reflection of the glass, clutching my arms tightly, staring at myself, staring at my bare back, touched by umbra, as everyone always says. I had no wings, no fire, nothing. I thought of all the other dragons in the flock. Every single one of them was happy with an exquisite pair of feathered wings. I gripped my arms even harder with my claws, not realizing that I drew blood. A crushing tension filled my chest as I forced myself to look up at my face, hideous and miscolored. My feathers were a gorgeous orange on one side, much like the rest of my flock. But on the other side, I was a deep, disgusting blue. The patterns on my body were splotchy and undecided, like the universe itself knew I didn't deserve to be beautiful, so it might as well not try at all. I clenched my teeth, looking longingly into the glass, but I knew I wasn't getting anywhere. Nothing could fix the mistake of what I am, not even a beautiful pair of wings. I closed my eyes tightly and slashed out in front of me, heaving my weight forward. The glass shattered more, splintering my palm. I winced as pain exploded throughout my arm, spreading through every nerve. Standing up slowly, I retreated back into the main room like a little kid from a fight. I collapsed onto the floor, the breath from my lungs vanishing with the blow. A silent stream of tears pushing through my closed eyelids. You're a worthless monster. Repulsive. You shouldn't even exist. Eventually, I contained myself enough to squint open my eyes, the world blurry and spinning when I finally did. I stared straight ahead, my face blank and still as stone. The candle lay in front of me, knocked over, yet still burning brightly. I sighed, the breath rumbling slightly throughout my body. I wasn't sad, I wasn't angry, I wasn't terrified, I wasn't anything. I was just dead to all the dangerous emotions that made me miserable. I was in my safe place now, and nothing could hurt me. I stayed there, staring at the candle as it slowly burned away. Shadows crawling towards it, stopping by the majesty of its light. The candle had no care in the world about anything. It just burned and burned until death, not afraid to shine despite all the pain in this world. But of course it was actually beautiful. It was light, made by Kairos. My heart quickened as I recalled the legend. Kairos was an ancient dragon, long, beautiful, and golden. He had 6 pairs of incandescent feathered wings and dazzling tall horns that held the sun in place as he flew through the sky. He was gorgeous, stunning, the most praised dragon that ever lived. His one flaw was that he also had a brother. Umbra was a hideous monster, consumed by a violent drive to get rid of his brother and all the life that he created. He was a sickening blue. He had wide, curved horns that formed the chilling silhouette of the full moon, glaring eyes that haunt your soul, and sitting upon his back was nothing. He was a terrifying beast, a dragon born with no wings, no fire, no light, only death, pain, and darkness. I shut my eyes, tears flooding my face again, clutching my arms so tightly I could feel my pulse. How easy it would be just to... The sound of my mother's feathers brushing against the stone wall snapped me out of my trance. I glanced down as I laid my head on my claws, finally relinquishing them from their place at my arms. Eclipse. The sun is rising, she whispered, walking over to me and letting her wing touch my bleeding talons. She only touched me for a second before drawing her wing back, the motion creating a small swirl of wind. She didn't speak after that. Neither did I. The thick silence wrapped around me, hanging over my head and making my heart drag on the floor. She didn't move. Neither did I. Her presence hovered above me, making my pulse falter slightly. After a moment of tense stillness, I heard the sharp clicks of her claws scraping the stone as she left. She left, and so did I, crawling out of the window like a criminal trying not to get caught. Before I knew it, I was forced into a grassy field, little dots of orange flowers bursting like candles at the sun. I walked only a little ways before I stopped at a small tombstone. It was my Aunt Kamari's. Of course she wasn't actually buried there, since she died in my mother's old tribe. I slowly gathered a bunch of fire flowers from the field, laying them one by one at Kamari's tombstone. I tried to be careful with the flowers, but the edge of my claw tore the thin little petals despite my efforts. I glanced down shamefully. I couldn't do anything right. I looked at Aunt Kamari's tombstone. She was like me, deep blue, no wings, hideous. And then she died, murdered by her flock. I guess that's all dragons like us deserve. I closed my eyes, a tear falling onto my talon. I never knew my aunt. I like to imagine her, though, like a distant memory just out of reach. I imagined her ghost walking next to me, sitting in the darkness with me, looking back at me in my shadow. I wanted to imagine how her feathers would flutter as we run through the fire flowers. I wanted to imagine her soft looks at me because she would have been the only one who truly understood how I was feeling. I smiled, the image closer than it ever had been before. I could almost feel the warmth filling my chest and trying to envelope me in a tranquil atmosphere. It was on the fringes of my emotions. I tried to grasp onto it, to pull me out of the darkness I'd been sitting in my whole life. I opened my eyes, the image so close that I thought I'd see it. For a second I thought I was. A dragon was before me, but it was definitely not Aunt Kamari. I staggered back in shock, tripping over my talons as I backed up all the way to the hard stone edge of my house. My heart pounded in my chest, the sound filling my ears and consuming my thoughts. It was Lux, one of the dragons my age. Thankfully, he wasn't close enough to hurt me. I didn't look up, just kept my eyes glued to the ground as I heard the harsh swoosh as his wings whipped open. I heard a couple of other wings as well, about 5 dragons. He wasn't alone. They didn't fly away, they just left their wings out to taunt me. "What are you doing over here?" he asked, a low tremble in his voice. You know the rite of daybreak has already started, right? I sat back instinctively. The stiff crunch of the leaves echoed throughout my ears. He sat back as well, obviously satisfied in making me scared. I nodded slightly, looking out of the corner of my eye at the flock, gathered in the distance. The sun cast a soft glow over the field where they were already starting the daily routine of the sunrise ceremony. Today was the start of the rite of daybreak, something to honor Kairos, the rising sun, our everything. It was, well, let's just say it was a bad thing, a very bad thing, to skip it. I looked up at the head of the flock, Mother already staring in my direction. My muscles tensed, and I froze. I don't know why I didn't move, I just couldn't. I watched from afar as the dragons all lifted their glorious wings and took off, circling the large statue of Kairos. And as they all, one by one, spat a fireball in between the horns of Kairos, where the sun currently was. "Fine, nobody wanted you there anyways," Lux said in response to my silence, his voice low and foreboding. I felt the wind push down on me as he took off and joined the rest of the flock. Finally, I looked up, thinking that the rest of them flew off too, but a large brick-red dragon remained. He didn't look like anyone I'd seen before. He was slightly larger than any of the dragons my age, and he had a black bracelet adorned with a strange pendant that looked like an arrow on fire. The dragon walked in front of me, his wings high above him, leaving me cast entirely in shadow. I stared up at him, my eyes wide. Once again, I couldn't move. The world was frozen in place by his smoldering gaze. After what seemed like forever of the brick-red dragon's eyes boring into my soul, he slashed his wings down fast, propelling him into the air. The force of the wind physically pushed me over, and I was left panting on the ground, staring up at him as he bolted to the flock. My breath tightened in my chest, the edges of my visions went black, and I could only see what was directly in front of me. My pulse echoed through my head, throbbing, attacking, bleeding into my thoughts and actions. My talons naturally found their place clutching my arms. I shut my eyes, tightening the muscles around them to try and prevent the tears that were already flowing down my face. "It was just some random kid," I thought, looking up at the sky where he had joined the rest of the flock. So why am I still hurt? I closed my eyes again, trying to hide myself from everyone, from father, from mother, from the brick red dragon, from myself. Who was he to put me in his shadow? I never talked to that dragon before. I didn't even know his name, and I knew everyone's names. Everyone's. I opened my eyes and looked down, gritting my teeth. The stone ground was pooling with my tears, just enough to see my own reflection, distorted from the cracks in the stone. The edges of my mismatched eyes pulled down, and my breath vanished from my lungs. I couldn't be angry. I didn't deserve to feel angry at him. Just look at me. I'm sure many people wish I'd just pack my bags and leave. I'm sure my mom did. Laying my head down on the wet ground, I glanced over the flock where my mother was walking into the forest with the rest of the hunters. They left and stayed gone until dinner. We go to sleep, wake up, she leaves, and I don't see her again until nightfall. Some say it's just her job, and that's technically true. But why did she request it? The only job that requires you to be gone the literal whole time the sun is up. She's the chief's wife. She could choose any job she wanted. So why? Why did someone with no experience and no skill choose to become a hunter? I wish with all my heart that I didn't know the answer, but I did. She leaves to avoid her problems, to avoid me. I looked back at Kamari's tombstone, trembling with sorrow, wondering if my mother had been there for her, if she would still be alive.